The police knocked on my door at 3:17 in the morning. No one forgets a knock like that, not because of the sound, because somewhere deep inside, you already know. Your life is about to split into before and after. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood on my porch. 1 man, 1 woman. Neither of them spoke right away. The woman finally asked, "Mr. Carter?" I nodded. Yes. She took a slow breath. "I'm very sorry. Yeah, there's been an accident." The next 10 minutes are mostly a blur. Words like highway, collision, instant, no suffering. People always say those things, as if they're trying to soften something that can never be softened. My wife, Emily, had been driving home from visiting her sister. She was only 20 minutes away. 20 minutes, that's all. 20 minutes between coming home and never coming home again. We'd been married 26 years. No dramatic love story. No movie moments, just 26 years of ordinary life. Morning coffee, arguments over paint colors, burnt pancakes every Sunday because she refused to use a timer. The kind of life you don't realize is extraordinary until it's gone. The officers left just before dawn. Neighbors started arriving. Phone calls, family, flowers, questions. Everything became noise. I answered what I could. I ignored the rest. At some point, I noticed something strange. Emily's phone wasn't on the kitchen counter. She never left the house without it. Never. I figured the police had taken it. That made sense. I didn't think about it again. The funeral was scheduled. 3 days later, I barely slept, barely ate. Time stopped making sense. Morning felt like night. An hour felt like a minute. A minute felt like forever. The morning after the funeral, I woke up before sunrise. The house was painfully quiet for 26 years. The first sound I'd heard every morning was Emily making coffee. That morning, there was nothing. Without thinking, I picked up my phone, opened our text conversation. The last message I'd ever sent her was still there. "Drive safe. Love you." She never read it. At least, that's what I believed. I stared at the screen. Then, for reasons I still can't explain, I typed one more message. Not because I expected an answer, because grief makes people do strange things. I wrote, "I miss you." Then I hit send. I put the phone down, walked into the kitchen, made coffee. For one. About 15 minutes later, my phone vibrated. I frowned. Spam. Probably. I almost ignored it. Then I looked at the screen. The message was from Emily. 3 words. "Check the glove box." I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stared, waiting for the message to disappear. It didn't. My wife had died yesterday. So, who had just replied? From her phone? I read the message again, then a 4th time. "Check the glove box." 3 words. No emoji, no signature, nothing. Just those 3 words. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Someone had her phone. Maybe a police officer. Maybe her sister. Maybe someone had accidentally replied from her device. There had to be a logical reason. There always is. I called the number immediately. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, voicemail. Emily's voicemail. The same recording she'd used for years. "Hi, you've reached Emily. Leave me a message and I'll call you back." Her voice felt like a punch to the chest. I hung up without saying a word. 10 minutes later, I was driving toward the impound lot. The police had already told me her SUV had been taken there until the investigation was complete. I wasn't even sure they'd let me near it, but I had to try. The officer at the front desk recognized my name. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Carter. I just need one thing." "What is it?" "I need to check the glove box." He looked confused. "The glove box?" "Yes." He typed something into his computer, then frowned. "That's strange." "What?" "It hasn't been inventoried yet." "Can I see the vehicle?" He hesitated. "I'll have to ask my supervisor." Those 5 minutes felt longer than the entire drive. Finally, he returned. "You can look, but don't remove anything. If you find something important, leave it where it is." I nodded. "I understand." The SUV was parked behind a chain-link fence. The front bumper AC was crushed. The windshield shattered. Seeing it made everything real again. This wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was the last place. Emily had been alive. I opened the driver's door. The familiar scent hit me immediately. Vanilla air freshener, coffee, her perfume. For one impossible second, it felt like she had just stepped out and would be back any minute. I stood there, unable to move. Then I remembered the message. Check the glove box. Slowly, I reached across the passenger seat, pulled the handle. The compartment opened. Inside, there was almost nothing. Insurance papers, a flashlight, a packet of napkins, and a small white envelope. My name was written on the front, not printed, handwritten, Emily's handwriting. I picked it up carefully. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. Before I could open it, someone spoke behind me. "Mr. Carter?" I turned around. A detective I'd never met. I was standing a few feet away. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the envelope. Then he quietly asked, "Can I ask you one question?" I nodded. He took a slow breath. "Why did your wife hide that without telling us?" The detective never took his eyes off the envelope. "May I?" I hesitated, then slowly shook my head. "It's addressed to me." He nodded. "I understand. And I'm not asking to keep it. I just didn't know it existed." For a moment, neither of us moved. Finally, he stepped back. "It's your decision, Mr. Carter." I looked down at the envelope. Emily's handwriting, neat, careful, exactly the way she'd always written birthday cards and grocery lists. My fingers slid beneath the seal. I opened it. Inside, there was only one folded sheet of paper. It began with just 2 words. "My love." I had to stop reading. Not because I wanted to, because I suddenly couldn't see. Tears blurred every line on the page. I wiped my eyes and tried again. "My love, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong." My heartbeat quickened. I kept reading. "Before you panic. No, I don't know what's going to happen. And no, I'm not hiding another family, another marriage, or another life." A broken laugh escaped me. That was Emily, even in a letter like this. She was trying to make me smile. The next paragraph made my stomach tighten. "For the past few weeks, I've been trying to tell you something. Every time I almost did. You looked so tired that I convinced myself it could wait one more day. One more day." I whispered those words to myself. How many times had we both said them? Tomorrow, next weekend, after work, when things calm down. One more day. We spend our lives believing there will always be one more day. I continued reading. If nothing happened, I planned to give you this letter myself. We would probably laugh about how dramatic I was. I hoped that's exactly what would happen. Then, nothing. The page ended. I turned it over. Blank. I checked inside the envelope again. Nothing else. I frowned. This can't be all of it. The detective looked at me. "What does it say?" I handed him the page. He read it silently, then looked at the envelope. "There should be another sheet." "What?" He turned the envelope upside down, gently shook it. Nothing fell out. "The fold marks." He pointed carefully. "She folded more than one page." I stared at the paper. He was right. The crease was too thick, as if there had originally been 2 pages, not one. A cold feeling settled over me. Someone removed it. The detective didn't answer. He didn't need to, because we were both thinking the exact same thing. Just then, his phone rang. He answered immediately. "Detective Harris." His expression changed. "What?" He turned away for a moment, listening, then looked back at me. "Are you absolutely certain your wife only visited her sister that night?" I frowned. "Of course." He lowered the phone. "Because according to the traffic cameras, before the accident, she made one unexpected stop." I couldn't stop staring at the detective. "An unexpected stop?" He nodded. "The traffic cameras placed your wife's SUV outside a small shopping plaza." I frowned. "That's impossible. Emily hated that part of town." "So why was she there?" He slowly shook his head. "That's exactly what we're trying to figure out." He pulled a tablet from his bag, tapped the screen, then turned it toward me. A blurry image appeared. It wasn't much, just Emily's SUV pulling into a parking lot at 8:41 p.m. The timestamp was clear. The location was clear. Everything else wasn't. "How long was she there?" I asked. 9 minutes. "Only 9. According to the cameras. I looked at the screen again. What was in that plaza? The detective scrolled through another page. A pharmacy, a coffee shop, a florist, and he stopped reading. A small jewelry store. I almost laughed. A jewelry store. The detective looked up. Does that mean something? I nodded slowly. No. It makes even less sense. Emily wasn't interested in jewelry. Not expensive jewelry. Not cheap jewelry. Every anniversary, I'd tried buying her necklaces, bracelets, earrings. She always smiled, kissed my cheek, and then asked, "Can we return it and spend the money on a weekend trip instead?" The detective folded his arms. "Mr. Carter, did your wife ever mention buying something recently?" I searched my memory. Nothing. Not a word. Then, something hit me. Not a memory. A sentence. 3 weeks earlier, Emily had looked at me across the dinner table and smiled. She'd said, "Promise me something." I hadn't even looked up from my laptop. I was answering work emails. What? "Promise me you'll take Friday off next month." I remember laughing. "You know that's impossible." She rolled her eyes. "One day you're going to realize work isn't going anywhere." I smiled. "We'll celebrate the weekend after." She smiled back, but this time it didn't quite reach her eyes. The detective interrupted my thoughts. "What are you thinking?" I looked at him. "I'm thinking I broke another promise." Before he could answer, another officer walked into the garage. "Detective Harris, we found something." Harris turned. "What is it?" The officer held up a small evidence bag. Inside was a silver key. No keychain, no tag, just a single key. It was lodged beneath the driver's seat. Harris frowned. "It wasn't listed in the original inventory." "No. The tow company found it when they cleaned the vehicle." The detective examined it carefully, then handed it to me. "Does it look familiar?" I turned it over. Once, twice. Then I noticed 3 tiny engraved letters. SDB. I whispered them aloud. SDB. At first, they meant nothing. Then my stomach dropped. Safe deposit box. I looked up at Harris. I know exactly what this key opens." The bank opened at 9. I was waiting outside, 20 minutes early. The detective arrived a few minutes later. Neither of us said much. There wasn't anything left to guess. The answers were somewhere behind that vault door. The manager looked at the key, checked her computer, then looked back at me. "Mr. Carter." "Yes." "The safe deposit box is registered to Emily Carter." I nodded. "I'm her husband." She hesitated. "I'm very sorry for your loss." After several signatures, and more paperwork than I could count, she finally disappeared into the vault. She returned carrying a small gray metal box, no larger than a shoebox. She placed it on the table and quietly stepped outside, leaving us alone. For a long moment, I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Detective Harris didn't rush me. He simply waited. Finally, I lifted the lid. There wasn't any cash, no jewelry, no passport, nothing dramatic. Instead, the box was filled with ordinary things: a faded movie ticket, a seashell, a tiny blue ribbon, a Polaroid of us standing in front of our first apartment, the receipt from the diner where we'd had our first date, a coaster from the beach cafe where I'd proposed. I smiled. Then, without warning, I started crying. Not because of what was inside, because I finally understood what I was looking at. Emily hadn't been hiding secrets. She'd been protecting memories. At the very bottom lay a leather notebook. Its cover was worn, the corners were bent. I opened it carefully. The first page read, "Things I never want us to forget." Every page held a memory. The night we danced in the kitchen because the power went out, the camping trip, where it rained for 3 straight days, and we laughed anyway. The morning we adopted our dog. The first Christmas, when we could finally afford real presents. 30 years, pressed between paper. Then, halfway through the notebook, everything changed. One page had no memory, no story, only a date. Next Friday. The date circled 3 times. Beneath it, Emily had written, "Tell him everything." I frowned. Everything. Everything. About what? I turned the page. It had been torn out. Not neatly, not carefully. Ripped. Someone had removed it. Detective Harris slowly leaned forward. "That missing page." He looked at me. "It matches the missing page From the letter. Before I could answer, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Hello? A woman's voice, soft, uncertain. Mr. Carter? Yes, my name is Sophie. There was a long pause. I think I've been trying to find you since the day your wife died. My heart stopped. What do you mean? She took a shaky breath. The police told me. They already had everything. So I believed the package I'd been asked to deliver was no longer important. I gripped the phone tighter. What package? Another pause. Then she quietly said, the one. Emily left with me the night of the accident. I asked Sophie where she was. Can we meet? She hesitated. Yes, I'm at the cafe on Maple Street, the one across from St. Andrew's Church. I'll wait. 20 minutes later, I walked inside. The cafe was almost empty. A young woman stood as soon as she saw me. She looked nervous. She couldn't have been older than 25. You must be Mr. Carter. I nodded. And you're Sophie. She swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. I wanted to come to the funeral. I just didn't know if I should. She reached into her bag and carefully placed a small brown package on the table. I've been carrying this with me for 4 days. I stared at it. My name was written across the front, in Emily's handwriting. What is it? Sophie smiled sadly. I don't know. Emily asked me not to open it. She said, if anything ever happens to me, please make sure my husband gets this. My hands trembled as I untied the ribbon. Inside, there was a small velvet box, not a jewelry box, a memory box. I opened it. There was a simple silver watch. Mine, the one I'd lost almost 15 years ago. I laughed through my tears. I thought I'd left this in a hotel. Sophie smiled. Emily found it. She had it repaired. She wanted to surprise you on your anniversary next Friday. Beneath the watch was a folded letter. This one had every page. Nothing was missing. I unfolded it carefully. My love, if you're holding this, then life didn't give us the extra time I kept counting on. I couldn't stop crying. Still, I kept reading. I've spent weeks putting together little pieces of our life, not because I thought I was going to die, but because I realized something. We've become so busy making a living that we've forgotten to celebrate the life we've already built. Another page. Next Friday. I wanted to take you back to every place that mattered. Our first apartment, our first date, the beach where you proposed, the diner where we laughed until closing time. I even found your old watch. You always thought you lost it. You didn't. I kept it safe because every time I looked at it, I remembered the young man who believed we had forever. My vision blurred again. The detective quietly looked away, giving me a moment. The final page was short, very short. Please don't spend the rest of your life wondering what I never told you. I already told you every single day, every cup of coffee, every goodbye kiss, every ordinary Tuesday. That was my love letter. There was one final sentence, written alone. At the bottom of the page, don't remember me because I died. Remember me because we lived. I folded the letter and held it against my chest. For the first time, since the police knocked on my door, I didn't feel like I was carrying only grief. I was carrying gratitude. A few weeks later, I took Friday off. For the first time in years, I drove to every place Emily had written about. Our first apartment, the old diner, the beach. I wore my repaired watch, and at every stop, I thanked her, not for leaving me, but for reminding me that the greatest moments of our lives are usually the ones we think are ordinary. If this story touched your heart, take a moment today to call someone you love, not because something happened, but because nothing has happened. And that's a gift far too many of us don't appreciate until it's gone. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoy stories that remind us what really matters, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Case Files. We'll see you in the next story.